Just ahead on This American Land. Safeguarding Oregon's clean waters. It's part of the DNA of the folks who work and play in this lush natural beauty.
The more wild and scenic rivers we have, the more wild fish will thrive in our state, and the more economic and social benefit that all Oregonians will receive.
Tribal leaders, high school students, and master brewers are among those finding enduring new ways to care for this precious resource.
We recognize the importance of using our business and our voice as a force for good, protecting these places.
There's some antelope actually right there.
Welcome to Southwest Wyoming. It's part of a vast and mesmerizing mosaic. 245 million acres of public lands that belong to all of us.
The public have opportunities to comment on how they would like to see these lands managed.
From improving animal migration routes to more traditional uses like energy development and cattle grazing, it's a constantly changing balance of environment and economy.
This is where our biggest power is used on the farm.
This Minnesota farm produces corn, soybeans, and sunshine.
Should provide all our power and about 20% extra.
So come join our pack. We've brewed up a new season of This American Land. Funding for this program provided by the McKnight Foundation, the Walton Family Foundation, and the Horner Family Fund.
Hey everybody, and welcome to This American Land. I'm your host, Ed Arnett, and it's great to be back with you for this, our 10th season on public television. And we've got some terrific stories for you coming up about the conservation of America's natural resources, its landscapes, waters, and wildlife, and about the people who are dedicated to conservation across the country. We'll start today in Oregon, a state with thousands of miles of clean flowing rivers that its people want to protect. And there's a bill in Congress right now that would do just that, designating many of Oregon's rivers as wild and scenic with special protection.
Oregon is a state that is really defined by our rivers. From the old-growth forests to the high desert, rugged canyons and the Owyhee River, the Deschutes. We have amazing rivers across our state.
Clean water, outdoor recreation, the ability to fish and to hunt. Rivers are everything in Oregon.
Oregon has grown so much in population that we're putting additional stresses on our important critical waterways. Construction near the watershed, adding additional pollutants into our clean rivers are all factors that are impacting wild fish that we need to protect for.
The reason we think rivers are so important to the state of Oregon is that it also brings in a number of tourists. That's really important for our economy.
And if we don't participate in advocating for these places and protecting them, then they won't exist for our customers or our business.
In Oregon and in the United States as a whole, we really rely on our watersheds more than we realize as sources of recreation and places to enjoy nature and be with friends and family.
As far as I'm concerned, water is the next gold, and it's a precious commodity, and we need to protect it so that generations to follow have the same safe, clean drinking water that we have right now.
We're calling it the River Democracy Act. We went out to every nook and cranny of our state, and 2,500 Oregonians submitted 15,000 nominations of rivers and streams across Oregon that they would like to see added to the National Wild and Scenic Rivers designation list. Basically, once you have protected the area, you're not going to be able to ravage it with the kind of economic prospects that disturb the wild and scenic nature of it. what our wild and scenic rivers are all about is thinking for the longer term.
Kira, Sydney, and I are the presidents of the Bend High Environmental Club and work to support climate legislation and raise awareness for the environment. We decided to nominate Wychoose Creek as a wild and scenic river because we believe that the intrinsic values of our natural watersheds need to be protected. I went to Senator Wyden's town hall meeting in Bend and presented a short speech about why we wanted to protect the river, what it meant to us and what it meant to our community. We nominated Wychoose Creek in order to protect the important restoration work that's been done there to bring back willow trees and protect beavers and steelhead salmon. And it's also actually an important site to Native Americans.
My family has always instilled in me the importance of leaving things better than you found them. So through this appreciation, it's really inspired me to use my voice to speak up and protect them.
Thousands of people from across Oregon nominated rivers to be included in this Wild and Scenic River bill. We had people from tribal leaders, local government officials, high school students, middle school students, and local brewers nominating rivers.
This is the Chutes Brewery. We were founded in 1988 in a small brew pub in downtown Bend. You now see the brewery that's really developed over years and years. Most of beer is, of course, water. So having free-flowing and clean water is probably one of the reasons that there's 400 breweries in Oregon. When people think of the Chutes beer, the quality of the water really shines through in the flavor profile and the different nuances that we have when we incorporate the malt and the hop and other ingredients into the beer. So it's a key component of it. In fact, what we do every day is we taste the water that we have in the brewing process to make sure it's the quality that we want in our beer. The reason we think rivers are so important to the state of Oregon is because it supports 173,000 jobs, just outdoor activities, and about $16 billion in revenue.
Sport fishing contributes about 1 in 20 jobs in the state of Oregon. The more wild and scenic rivers we have, the more wild fish will thrive in our state, and the more economic and social benefit that all Oregonians will receive.
Roughwear makes outdoor gear for dogs. Everything that a dog needs to get outside with its human. So our business really depends on people having spaces, outdoor spaces, and rivers to do that. We recognize the importance of using our business and our voice as a force for good. Protecting these places that we can create memories with our dogs that are so important to our lives and our happiness.
Senator Wyden's proposal challenge is to protect more rivers in the state of Oregon than any other state in the U.S. And this is important and necessary because we do have thousands and thousands of river miles that are currently not protected.
This is Henry Creek, which is our source of water for the 365 residents up here in the Rhododendron Water Association. Henry Creek starts up here, comes into this diversion pond, and then through these screens into our baffling chamber. A lot of people don't understand the process that water goes through before it gets to their faucet. We pride ourselves on being able to provide a safe and reliable source of drinking water to our ratepayers. What we've got here is our slow sand filter. This is the way that we filter our water most of the time. I nominated Henry Creek for wild and scenic designation because we want to protect our source water for many generations to come.
I believe protecting our rivers is really in Oregon's DNA. You get it wrong and you exploit a special place, you can't very easily come back and undo it. So what we want to do is grow this idea, and this is about how we contribute to making our state a better place, but also making our country a better place.
We'll go now to southwestern Wyoming, where federal resource management plans for vast areas of public lands are being reviewed to improve protections for the area's natural and historic values, including critical migration routes for wildlife.
We find that as we live here and use these landscapes, that we have an obligation to be the stewards of the land and to be able to have these special places into the future. I'm Joy Bannon. I'm the Policy Director for Wyoming Wildlife Federation. So this is just a special moment to be here this time of day. It's sunrise, and you can just get that color. You can see the contours of the landscape. It's just kind of the start of the morning. We are in southwest Wyoming, where we sit on public lands. For public lands, which are managed by federal government, the Bureau of Land Management, they do what they call National Environmental Policy Act review of their management plans every 15 to 20 years. And right now, the Rock Springs field office is revising their plan. There's some antelope actually right there. And the public have opportunities to comment on how they would like to see these lands managed. And we've provided management conservation options for them to consider that really look at hunting, angling, wildlife, habitat, and keeping that a vital part of these lands.
A resource management plan can be thought of as a blueprint, if you will. It basically spells out the management practices and the allocations that will be part of that management plan after it's been approved. I'm Mary Jo Rugwell. I was the state director for the Bureau of Land Management here in Wyoming from 2015 until I retired in 2019. It's a very great mission, but it's a very complicated mission because a lot of people that are involved in a particular area have different ideas about what things should happen in that area. So that's where the balancing act comes in. Well, the land use planning process, it's essential to have the input of the general public, and most especially the input of people like our Native American tribes that use that area.
The women would place their hands in this rock and squat down, and they would give birth. And how beautiful sentiment it is that they utilize the earth to give life. My name is Lynette Grable. I am Hunkpapa Lakota and Northern Arapaho, and I'm the executive director of Not Our Native Daughters. We have petroglyphs throughout the Red Desert. So from an indigenous standpoint, it is quite important that not we only preserve that, but also protect it. The Northern Plains tribes would utilize this cliff to scare the buffalo off this one particular drop. And the women would be on this side, and they would harvest the buffalo. Indigenous people, they follow the animals in these paths and these routes. So the migration corridor, the animals that reside in this area and that still reside here was a way of survival. Those lands and landscapes, I think it's very important for us to protect and something that we value as Native American people.
The reason migration is so important and why it receives so much attention is because migration promotes abundance. And so it makes sense that if we want to protect and sustain the populations that we have, we need to also take care of these migration routes. My name's Hal Sawyer. I'm a research biologist with Western Ecosystems Technology. And the one in the Red Desert is particularly impressive because it's the longest mule deer migration in the world. It's nice to know that they use the same migration route year after year. It's well defined. And so from a conservation perspective, it's pretty easy to incorporate management actions that can help those deer, like road crossings and fence modifications or conservation easements or an assortment of other things.
This is a high desert landscape, and we have big game here. They all rely on water, and this is a great water source. A beautiful mule deer right over there. They just got on the horizon.
It's really cool to see them coming through here. And there's a high probability that they spend their summers 100 miles away from here.
I want to make sure to note here that Wyoming Wildlife Federation, when we comment to the Bureau of Land Management, we mentioned that it's important to keep the historical uses of the landscape as well. So cattle grazing, energy development where appropriate, and maintaining that balance that we have to do to keep our wildlife here, but also create a good economy for Wyoming. And on a personal level, these public lands mean a lot to me. Not only did I hunt here for the first time, but I have 2 children, and we like to explore. We like to adventure in these areas, be out in the ecosystem that is thriving and doing well, and to see wildlife. We are on the top of Little Mountain, which is the crown jewel of Southwest Wyoming. So the Resource Management Plan, it's a long-standing document that's going to be revised. And therefore, what is created and developed and signed off on now will be in place for those next 20 years. And so that means 2 decades from now, when my children are having children, we want this to be in a very similar place.
Let's go now to the Midwest. In Minnesota, where increasing numbers of farmers are adopting solar power, covering their energy needs, and improving their profits, farmers are getting the message.
My father purchased this farm in 1960, and I bought it from him in the early 90s. We grow corn, soybeans, and some hay. This is soybeans we're loading here, and of course we use electric power. The electric motor drives the unload auger that's in the bottom of the bin, and then when we're about empty, we throw a sweep in, and that brings them to the center and out the bottom. That's what we use electricity for the grain side. Thank you. My name is Roger Walkus, and I farm in Plainview, Minnesota. This is where our biggest power is used on the farm anymore in the fall when we're harvesting and drying grain. We dry at a grain temperature of anywhere from 150 up to 180. We have motors on every auger and cooling fans on the bin, and we still have stock water heaters in the winter. They take enough juice. And then just basically for our needs here in the house and stuff, for heat, air conditioning. This little machine here doesn't mind calculating. There's a lot of challenges on the farm, and the biggest thing is probably finances anymore. Our prices are way out of whack compared to the cost of production, and so many variables. We fight the weather, and it's kind of a battle, and you got to be able to look for solutions and carry on. One of the challenges that we can control, as I went with this solar project, always going to need electricity, and cost of electricity is not going to go down, I'm sure.
What we're looking at here, 33.66 kW ground-mounted solar array, consists of 102 330-watt panels. My name is Chris Olafson, and I work for Solar Connection in Rochester, Minnesota. The biggest thing for Roger is that him and his wife Judy have consistently seen their electric bills go up over those years. And so when I first met with them, the first question that Roger had to ask was, how big can I go to cover what I need?
I was reading about it, and I see the incentives that would save you some money and possibly some grants and stuff. This is a good thing to have in between them. It helps keep the weeds down, and good for the bees, too, pollinators. So.
The federal income tax credit is still around, so there are still very good incentives that are available for everyone. This is a grid-tied solar array. If there's more solar being produced than the house is consuming, that power then gets sold back to the utility.
Full sun and it just really puts out.
Here in Minnesota, we have a very good policy at the state level called net metering that requires all utilities to pay you at the same rate for the energy you sell as what they're charging you. It looks like they've put out about 38,000 kilowatt hours so far, so they're ahead of schedule. And in his case, he didn't want to sell a lot of the energy back. He just wanted to offset his consumption.
Should provide all our power and about 20% extra.
There is a momentum across the state. It has more to do with people's ideals meeting their finances, where clean energy keeps coming down in cost. It's really cost effective to do, and you know, he's doing good by the environment as well. My name is Fritz Ebinger. I work for the Clean Energy Resource Teams for the University of Minnesota Extension. Back in 2013, the state passed a 1.5% solar energy standard, which was a mandate. Part of that legislation involved a 10% solar energy goal by the year 2030. We already satisfied the 1.5% mandate a while ago, just because the cost effectiveness of solar is so good. So it's still a goal. We've seen a lot of utility companies pivot towards renewable energy as a cost-effective generation, and you figure out how to create probably a greener mix between natural gas, solar, and large-scale wind. If you look at the statistics, farmers are getting a little bit larger, and smaller farmers are trying to figure out how to make their way through. One of the ways to do that is to expand, basically acquire more land or maybe more livestock. Another way is to specialize, and then diversification, which would include solar now. So farmers that can host a small amount of solar, that's another revenue stream for them. Utility scale solar development, whether that's a 1 megawatt community solar garden or maybe a piece of a larger development, does present like a mitigating benefit financially. You're reducing your inputs because you're not tilling and planting that area anymore, and then you're also getting a lot more lease money than you would otherwise from marginal land.
Being a farmer, it probably makes more sense than somebody in town that might sell in a couple years or move on, another job or something, but the farm generally stays, you know, a lot of times within the family.
Growing up, I started doing chores. I think I was about 4. I have several memories of falling asleep in the parlor watching them milk. I think I was supposed to go to bed, but I decided to play around some more. I am Rachel Walkus. I work here at Mayo Clinic, and I am the daughter of Roger Walkus. Oh yes, I named the cows. I did an alphabetical order so that I could easily know which one was born in which order. Q's, Y's, and Z's were not my friends. We might have used yak several times. The most compelling reason to me to move forward with our solar project, growing up, we started doing 100% no-till on our farm. So not only were we trying to conserve water and soil, the next thing, why not try to conserve energy? Whether it be wind or solar, I was on board. So I think this is a great opportunity to make this investment so that as I eventually get to take over the family farm, that I'm able to use these funds that we're saving from the energy bill and go ahead and spend that other places where I can invest and improve the farm.
Power costs are always going to continue to rise, and the sun is free. You might as well be self-sufficient with your power.
I think farmers really are forward thinkers, and they understand how technology works, and you know, they certainly are stewards of the environment, and this is just another example of how you can be both a steward financially and environmentally.
I think we're making a positive impact on the planet just because we are setting an example for others to try to see how they can either reduce, generate, do something to make a change so maybe we have less of a footprint, leaving things better off than what we found them.
And now, here's a quick look at stories from our next show.
A drier future demands a whole new approach to farming, like crop switching. This Wyoming plant uses half as much water as corn, but it's not for the dinner table, it's for your car.
The rubber is all contained in the bark area. If I break off a piece of the plant and pull back the bark, some of the resin has rubbed off to my finger. And when combined with other materials, the rubber from this 10-acre field would produce over 500 tires.
The Mayo Clinic may be best known for tackling disease and injury. Now it's also a leader in saving energy.
This plant, compared to your normal electrical power plant, is about twice as efficient.
A dangerous 400-mile barrier to migrating wildlife gets a life-saving makeover.
We decided to build all these grade-separated crossings to make it safer. When we first started seeing the animals come across, it was really exciting.
Next time on This American Land.
That's all for now, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on This American Land.
For more information about this program, visit thisamericanland.org, listen to our podcasts, and like us on Facebook. Funding for this program provided by the McKnight Foundation, the Walton Family Foundation, and the Horner Family Fund.